I'm dangerous with it now. Hey, folks, it's Lindsey Huddleston with SPS back in the building. That's right, Sports Psychology Solutions. And as promised, got another great person I want to bring to your attention. Someone who's doing some great things in their individual life, but I think can be something that can inspire people who may come in contact with this broadcast. And that is Miss Erin Harvego. She is a recent qualifier for the Olympic triathlon, and we're going to get into that, and we can be very specific about that. But I just want to say I appreciate having your friendship over a matter of months, but being able to watch your social media and all the amazing, outstanding things that you're doing. And I just really want to give our viewers, anyone who may watch this broadcast, an opportunity to get some insight into someone who trains to train to be a triathlete, but still get up and go to work in the morning is something to be said about that. So how about this? I know this information about you from communicating with you, but can you just give an introduction of who you are and how we got to this point that in 2021, you are preparing for an Olympic-style triathlon?
Yeah, sure. So I basically started triathlon a little over 20 years ago. When I started out, it was basically one of my friends signed up for a sprint triathlon. It was an all-women's triathlon, and she sent an email out to her group of friends and just said, "Hey, anyone want to do this with me?" And at the time, I'm like, "Well, that sounds fun." And I bought a $400 hybrid bike and trained with them all summer and did my first sprint in August of that year, and it was it was fun, but I really didn't think that I was going to do another one after that. And so the next year, my friend signed up again, and I decided that I really liked the race experience, but I wasn't an athlete growing up, so it was something that was a little bit foreign to me. And so I just thought, well, I could probably do a sprint distance and not have to train, and I'll just have that be part of like one of the hobbies I do. So did that for several years. And then I moved from Seattle to New York. And when I moved to New York, I was looking for, that social group that you're always, trying to find when you move to a new place, and stumbled upon a triathlon team that was training there. And more just for the friendship aspect of it, I, started training with them. And then I realized that I was much better when, I started, training as opposed to, just kind of showing up at these sprint triathlons. So, it's been kind of an interesting journey for me because I would never call myself an athlete. Like I said before, I didn't play sports in high school or college. It was something that, I came across as an adult. So, and then, from there, I just kind of gradually moved up distances and ended up moving to Chicago and, finding another, triathlon group and, kept training and working hard and, ended up, having it a big part of my lifestyle now.
Right. Well, that's wonderful. That's great. And for our viewers who will watch that, to give them an idea, I'm going to put some images up of some distances. And can you kind of give us a little bit of coaching on what is what and what are you running, if you can see the formats that I have up right here?
Yeah. So those are the basic formats. The one that is still missing actually is the Ironman distance, but I can talk through that. But
okay. So like what you're about to do is not even listed yet, huh?
Well, the sprint distance is, and that's usually the entry point for a lot of triathletes. It's, depending on, the race, it's usually somewhere between a 400 and 800 meter swim. It's a, 12 to 14 mile bike, and then a 5 kilometer or 3 mile run. The Olympic distance, and that's the one you're probably familiar with if you ever watched the Olympics, a little bit longer. So it's a 1.5 kilometer swim. It's usually about a 25 mile bike and then a 10 kilometer run. And then, so that's what's considered short course. And then you get into the longer distances. So here you're looking at the triathlon 70.3. That's always a 1.2 mile swim. That's a 56 mile bike and then a 13.1 mile run or a half marathon distance. ITU long distance is a little bit different. So ITU, I don't want to get too in the weeds on this, but it's,
Sure.
You're able to draft on the bike where in other triathlons you're not allowed to. I don't really race ITU, but then you always get to the Ironman, which I think most people are familiar with because of seeing it on, on TV, and that's, the 2.4 mile swim, the 112-mile bike, and then the marathon at the end. So,
Wow.
so that is considered a long course along with the 70.3. And honestly, that's my favorite distance. I really prefer the long course. And that's kind of what I had specialized in the last few years. But, this year I'm trying some new stuff and, trying some of the shorter distances, which, is not necessarily what I'm, most adept at, but I'm working hard to get better at it.
I get it. Now, you made it very clear to me when we were talking offline that you're not a weekend warrior because you're putting in some 15 to 20 hours a week. Weekend
Yes.
warriors, that's a cute name, but hey, not for you. So I really want to kind of explore this dynamic, with the work that you do with BTN and the work that I do and how we kind of came across each other's paths. We're dealing with collegiate level athletes for the most part. So
Yes.
you get how these people are committed to an athletic lifestyle and shortly thereafter as they extend to a professional career. But you and I, who are further along, in our professional career, talk about the different mindset between being a collegiate athlete, even though you were not one, and neither was I, to be honest, but to be able to be a professional that has to get up and go to work in the morning, but still has a 15 to 20 hour athletic work week.
Yeah, there's similarities and there's differences. I can tell you from, getting into triathlon, I have such a great respect for the amount of time that collegiate athletes put in to be at the highest level of their sport and still, have the whole academic load on top of that. So that is a lot of balancing. It's a lot of, hard work. I'm sure it's a lot of sacrifice on their end. And, I think I get it more now that I participate in triathlons than I probably did before. Everything's a balance, and I think it's, finding things that you're passionate about. And if you're passionate enough about it, you're going to find the time and you'll make the sacrifices. So, for me, that means, getting up before work and working out, going to work, and then, usually training at night as well, too. So,
Well, let's shock everybody with your time. You talked about the time you get up, but let's shock the world when you talk about what time you get up.
I usually get up at 4 a.m.
4 a.m., 0400.
Yeah.
Military time.
It is, and I'm not a morning person either, so
Wow,
that's always a challenge for me. So.
Well, when you say that time, I'm not shocked. I'm normally off for 4 hours or so sleep. I'm up at 04, 05, and the reason I wanted to highlight that because even with you're saying you're not a morning person, there's something, and I'm sure you will agree, so serene about that time. It's like the world is still kind of waking up, and you almost have an advantage because of the things you can do. So the reason I want to highlight that, because I think people have to understand that there are only so many hours in a day. And if you could commit yourself to spending that kind of time, there's so much more you can get out of it. And I think when you have that kind of attitude, you don't need an alarm clock in a sense because you're having something that motivates you. Mm-hmm. Now, you talked about being a professional, but still having this type of experience. And what I really want to get at is how do you differentiate between your colleagues at work around the water cooler who said, you did what this weekend? You're about to do what? Compared to your Betty squad that I want to talk about, that is your group, and how important is it, as I put this awesome logo up, just like that, right?
Colorfly.
Exactly. And how important it is to have a group. So talk a little bit about the Betty squad and how important they are, because I'm thinking that's who you were talking about when you said you got with different groups when you were in these different cities.
Yeah, so there's like local triathlon teams that I've trained with as well too, and for me, I'm a very social triathlete. I love to train with other people, and some people are able to like do that 100-mile ride on their own, and it doesn't faze them at all. But I'm always trying to like gather up my friends and see who I can convince to go do that. So that picture you're showing right now was all members of the Betty squad, and we did a century ride down in South Florida.
They look like they need no convincing to go ride. They look like they're down and hang out and have a good time.
Yeah, no, not at all. And just really strong women and, really passionate about what they do. And so that's also very motivating when you're around other people who share your same interests. So I joined the Betty squad in 2015. So this is my 7th year on the team. And the Betty Squad is basically a group of women that have been brought together by Kristen Meyer. She is the founder of Betty Design. So the kit I'm wearing today and the kits you showed up on the screen are her designs. And she is a triathlete who has been in the sport for a long time. And I can definitely say when I first started out, there really wasn't a lot of women's fashion when it came to triathlon. And Kristen came in and, kind of, just disrupted the race course. And she created women's specific triathlon clothing that was just beautiful and just made you feel really confident when you raced. And so, I discovered her like probably the year before. One of my friends was on the initial Betty Designs team, and I just loved what she did. And it was great to, start to wear those kits, because now I can go out on the course and, people will cheer me on by saying, go Betty. And I answer to that as often as I do Erin. And the race I did this last weekend, I saw a lot of different women wearing the Betty Designs kits. And it's just fun to see. And you just kind of feel like you have that connection with people. But, I've met some great people. It's a worldwide team. So there are people, all over the world in different countries. And, we are all kind of bonded by this endurance sports lifestyle. So really grateful for that opportunity to be on Betty Designs and to have met so many great women over the years.
I want to talk about Betty Design for a second. To me, as a casual observer and seeing that and knowing that there was something going on, I agree. I'm sure it probably makes you feel confident, but there's something kind of like edgy and badass about the design. It's kind of like, whoa, it's kind of like you see it. And for me, it draws you in even more because of like the balance of skull and a butterfly. I mean, my goodness, it's like you don't even know what part you want to be pulled into more. But I think it's something very powerful about the psychology behind the design, and that so many people show up with it, and it's always like a good look. And when you share that background, that says a lot. Talk about some of the personalities and the people that are part of this, international crew of, pretty much lady superheroes. What does it range from as far as the type of people that are involved in this?
There's a wide range. That's what I think is so interesting, is that everyone has a great backstory. There are people who have done, all sorts of interesting things, in and outside of triathlon. So there's professional women. There are women who are, mothers. There are women who do these long course, crazy 100-mile, running races. There are people who are just starting out too. It's just, it's hard to define really, who that person is, but we bond really quickly. And I know, especially during the pandemic, when everything kind of shut down, a lot of us were on our indoor trainers, and we would get on Zoom calls, and we would, just do our rides together. And for me, that was such a lifesaver, especially the first part of the pandemic, when you kind of could get lonely and you were, kind of looking to have that connection with other people. And just having people that you may not have ever met in person, but were able to talk to and develop that bond was really great. And, I just feel really blessed. I have, all these, amazing women that I call my friends now, that I would not have met through Betty Designs and being on the Betty Squad. And I think that's true of just triathlon in general. Like, I feel like people think of it as an individual sport, but inevitably, when I go to a race, I'll end up meeting, other competitors. And, by the end of the race, we've exchanged, Instagram handles. So that just happened to me, last weekend. I was, on the bike course. There was another girl, and she and I were pretty comparable in our bike speed. And I would pass her, and then a little while later, she'd pass me, and vice versa. And finally, at one point, I think I passed her, and she said, "This is great. We can keep pushing each other." And then she found me afterward, and we just, stay connected. And, I've met those people throughout, my many years competing in triathlon. And, it's just really inspiring to see, everything that they do, in their lives, and getting that opportunity to meet people that you normally wouldn't without triathlon. So that's always been a huge plus for me, and something that I've really enjoyed.
Now, I really appreciate that, because the reality is that a sports psychology consultant, of course, I'm keeping an eye on the psychological impact of COVID. And when you talk about having an entity that you can connect to, that one is a part of your interest, is two is healthy, because it's not necessarily saying you're doing things that can harm your body, so to speak, at least during the race, right? I don't know what you guys do after the race, right? But also too, it reminds me of organizations I've been a part of where everyone is on the level. Meaning that no matter what your background is and who you are and how many people may, just part the Red Sea when you come walking by. And when you're out here in this group, everyone's on the same level and you can connect like that. And I think that's important, especially as we continue to push through COVID. We're not out of the woods, yes, but I think that to have these type of opportunities that can, one, bring people in who are beginners, who are newbies, who are not coming with this long athletic resume, but can feel warm and welcome. So I'm hoping as people listen to this broadcast or watch it again and whatnot, they can see that, because there may be a lot of people who are still looking for places to be vulnerable, try something out, and then be around a collective group, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. There's no judgment whatsoever. Like, everyone has started out as a beginner. And so, if anything, I think it's become a great place for us to, exchange advice and tips and, really support each other. So whenever I have the opportunity, based on my background, to help someone else out, I will always try to do that, because I know what it feels like to do your first triathlon and to be, scared that you're not going to finish or you're going to look foolish. And, the first time I wore a wetsuit, I didn't even know that it zipped up in the back. So I had it zipped up in the front, and I swam the entire thing. And afterward, I remember my mom looking at the pictures and she said, "I think it's supposed to go in the back."
It was your mom that was like, "Honey."
Yeah, she was like, "Yeah, you don't know what you're doing." So,
but you know what though? But for you you told me so much about this group, because if your mom was able to see that, that meant that you went through the entire race without being fodder, without people calling you out or whatnot, or just not even making it a thing, to be able to make it to your mom and say, "Honey, I think that was in," like, oh, and no one kind of, called you out on that in a bad way. I think that says a lot.
Yeah, no, not at all. I mean, I think, just in general, I think it's just a positive, area, a positive world in the triathlon world. And sure, everyone, competes hard and races hard, but at the end of the day, you can still get together and, kind of enjoy that camaraderie. And, again, it's really made my life wide, because I have expanded my circle so greatly that I don't think I would have had some of these experiences and people in my life without it. So it's been great. We had a Betty who lived in Jordan, and I went there on a trip and reached out to her before I left, and said, "Hey, I'm going to be coming to your country." And she ended up picking me up from the airport. She took me to dinner. The next day, she arranged a lunch for some other local triathletes in the area. And then she took me to her gym, and it was just such an amazing experience I never would have had going on a traditional organized trip. But we just have those kind of connections, and I am just so blessed to be able to meet people from all over the world and get to know them, and it's something I hope I am able to do for a really long time, because I really enjoy it, and see so many benefits to it, just not physically, but just with everything else, emotionally, mentally. I just think that there's a lot to get out of it.
I like that. Before we talk about your upcoming race and your road to getting there, your decade plus journey to get there, I want to make reference to the comment by Terry McCord Jr. This young man is a co-host on my SPS Edge podcast. I caringly refer to him as my young Jedi, because he's an outstanding young man. But to go back to the term we just used, expanding, even Terry, as a recent high school athlete and just an outstanding young man, I just think that him hearing about what you're discussing is passing this message on. He says it's really cool to see athletes support each other even when they compete at the highest level. So just, Terry, I appreciate you chiming in and sharing that. But I think that's another reason, Erin, I think our conversation was important and needed, because it's about expanding. Everyone's not on a hoop court playing football, but there are so many other ways. And I think you telling the story about your Betty and Jordan that just gave you this, warm, royal welcome, in another country, but there was still this common understanding because you guys shared in that. So if this photo is correct me if I'm wrong, is this the most recent photo you had from your race? Okay.
Yeah, no, that is from an earlier race. That was another race. It was a road race that I did.
Another race you came in first place,
So that was a 5-mile race. And, just still, trying to like work on my speed and get used to the shorter distances, because for so many years I've been a long course athlete. So to be successful as a long course, you really need to, build up your endurance and be able to kind of outlast a lot of people. And this year I've kind of made that transition to trying the short course, which is, a little bit scary because, it doesn't play to my strengths. When you're doing a short course race, the swim portion is much larger, and that's a place that, I get beaten a lot. So in the long course, you can always make up the time in the bike and the run, but you really can't in a short course. So,
Well,
this year I'm really focused on just trying to increase my speed and not, kind of stay in my comfort zone of that long course distance.
well, you know how we are about language. I'm going to go back to that comment you made about getting beaten a lot. We're going to eliminate that
Yes.
term. And we're
Okay.
going to say that's where you don't excel like you would like to.
Correct.
Okay, we want to
Thank you.
eliminate that you've been beaten. Okay, so just to push
Yes.
and work on that. Now, is this image here? Was this your most recent race and getting ready
Yes.
for the other one? Okay.
Yes. Yes, you got it. So as you can see, kind of in the upper right-hand corner, it was a USAT World Qualifier, which means that they had slots to go to Edmonton, Alberta for the World Championships, which are going to
Okay.
be on August 22nd. So fortunately, where this race was in Sebring, it was a couple-hour drive from where I am today. And so it was actually an interesting opportunity because normally to qualify for Worlds, you compete at the national championships, which rotate from year to year. They're usually in Cleveland or Milwaukee, and there's I think 18 people from each age group who qualify. Because of the pandemic and COVID and everything, I think that there's just I think they actually had some openings, and so they created these special qualifier races, which I don't know if they've ever done before, but one of them happened to be in Sebring. So when I came down here, I actually had no idea that was, a possibility. And then I realized that this was a qualifier, which I was like, well, maybe I should, give it another shot, because I've tried. So I've raced in 2 national championships before this. And, the first one I remember like finishing thinking, wow, I did really good. I gave it my all. And, thinking I was going to, be in that top 18, and I was 49th. And so it wasn't even close. And I was like so shocked. And I'm like, wow, I need to, go back and, to do the long course. And, 3 years later, I tried again. And this time I placed 39th, which is better than 49th, but it's still not even close to that top 18. And that was back in, 2014. So at that point, I'm like, okay, you know what? I just don't think, the Olympic distance is for me. I really want to go back to where I feel confident, which is in the long course. So the 70.3 and the Ironman. Did that for many, many years. And so this is me kind of starting over again and trying. And, I just am so excited that I was able to qualify last weekend and get to go to Edmonton, which, by the way, there are many Betty Squad members who live there. So I'm so excited to see a lot of them for the first time, so in person. So as well as some of the other Betty Squad members who have qualified as well. So just really looking forward to it. And some of it was just the luck of having this extra qualifier so close to where I am and being able to participate. So can't wait to see what happens this year.
Yeah, it's been a 10-year grind. I think that's a lot. We got a question that's come in for you. One of our great supporters of the SPS Edge broadcast, Aaron Mays, he wants to know, Aaron, how do you maintain mental focus for each event? Very good. I like how you said each event. It's got to be a grind. And how do you motivate yourself? So, I mean, there's a few questions in that because you're talking about running, biking, and swimming. So does it change for each? You have to have a different approach. Yeah. Excellent question, by the way, Erin. Thank you for that.
Yeah, so it is a good question. And, I think mental toughness is extremely important in triathlon, because I've seen personally when, I get down on myself or don't think I can do something, it affects your whole body. So you really have to think about, how you're fully engaged in the process, not just from a physical standpoint, but from a mental standpoint. So I think the first answer to your question, Erin, is it really helps to have a big goal. So I found if I don't have a big goal, it's so hard to get up at 4 a.m. to go train, because the alarm goes off and you just want to sleep through it. So that is, have something that motivates you. And I think from person to person is probably different. But and I also think it's important for me, and one of the reasons why I'm trying short course this year is just to mix it up a little bit, to give me something different to work towards. And my coach is Melanie McQuaid, who is a multi world champion professional triathlete at the exterior level, and she also is a very successful Ironman triathlete as well. And
what's your coach's name again?
Melanie McQuaid.
Melanie McQuaid. Shout out to Melanie McQuaid. Right.
Yes. So she is, just a really just very intuitive, smart triathlete. I've really learned a lot from her. And, going into this race last weekend, and, I'm nervous about it because, I just, I'm not sure how it's going to go. And it matters a lot to me. And one of the things that she said is, in the short course, you have to be able to be willing to hurt. And she said the person who hurts the most is the one who's on top of the box. So that's what I thought about, last weekend when, I was, in each of the, different, the swim, bike, and run. Like every time I was swimming, I'm like, do I hurt? Okay, can I hurt more? On the bike, I'm like, am I hurting enough? Look at that person who's, 40, kilometers in front of me, can I catch that person? And it just, and then on the run, it was 100% humidity. So that was not hard to hurt at all. I think everybody was hurting on that run. So, but I think that's a really good focus, because I think, for the short course, that's really the key and the secret. For the longer course, you can be uncomfortable and be willing to be uncomfortable for a long time. But for those short distances, it really is just going full throttle and doing everything you can to move yourself forward.
Erin, obviously in the work that I do, I'm big on quotes, but my goodness, you have to be willing to hurt. The person that hurts the most is on top of the box.
Yeah.
When I talk to people about success, young people and people in whatever situation, I said, there's no real secret. There isn't this secret sauce, no pun intended, to where it's like, oh, you got to go left, right. No. What kind of sacrifice are you willing to give? And with this quote that she gave you, you were able to ask yourself that question to gauge.
Yeah.
And by asking yourself that, you say, no, you got a little bit more. But, talk about your willingness to give up that hurt, because we don't like to give up sleep.
Yes.
We don't like to spend money. You've invested hundreds of dollars, if not more. I should say $1,000, I'm sure, probably, in all the things you've been doing, and just all these things you have sacrificed. And you mentioned when we were talking offline in our communication that you kind of lost your why. Talk about the importance of searching and seeking that out. And I'm hoping that by people hearing that, it can kind of, rumble something inside of them that they may be coping with or trying to cope with, so they can find out, if that's a fair question to ask.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question to ask. And, when you lose your why, you lose your way. And I think going back to Erin's question earlier about, kind of how do you stay focused and stay on the grind, it's probably a different answer for different people. But, I found that after years and years and years of, really long, grueling workouts, that, I just found myself, lacking a little bit of motivation. And, there's always, life, other things that go on in your life, and, it kind of maybe takes away a little bit of your focus. But, I recognized in myself that I needed to take a break and just kind of recalibrate. And so I did that. So it was kind of in the middle of 2019, and, I wasn't, mentally engaged or emotionally engaged. And then when you're not mentally or emotionally engaged, then your physical ability just isn't there. And so, I did other things and, just kind of took a break. And then, of course, I wasn't expecting, I had signed up for all these races in 2020. That was going to be my year as coming back. And then, the pandemic happens and kind of throws us all off course. And so, but I also think that, whenever you get into that kind of a situation, you find other ways to to move forward. And, for me, one thing that I was always kind of interested in trying was stand-up paddleboard. And it was,
I thought you were
something
going to say stand-up comedy. I'm like, you do comedy?
I know. No one wants to see that.
But stand-up paddleboard, I have seen you doing that.
Yeah. So it was something that I never had time for before with all my training. I just had to really focus on my training. And, I saw a class being offered in Chicago and I signed up and, I just loved it. It was so much fun. And then I found out you can compete in stand-up paddleboarding. And so, once I found that out, it was like, okay, I'm in on this. And so, I spent a lot of time doing that, and it was a really good complement to triathlon training because you work your core, you work your, your balance, your foot strength. So there's, a lot of really great things about stand-up paddleboarding that translates over to other sports. I competed in a couple of races for stand-up paddleboarding, and it's always fun too to do a new sport because there's no expectations. You don't expect you're going to be, like great, so you can kind of finish wherever, and wherever that is, it's a PR for you. So. So it was just one of those things that, I took a longer break than I thought I was going to, but now I've come back with, I think, a new perspective and that hunger. And I don't think you can fake that hunger. You either have it or you don't.
And when it's there,
it's
there.
You do.
I don't want to give too much of an insight, but probably, every Monday I have a Monday motivation. And as of late, I'm grateful that I've been in a space to receive these thoughts. And I think, to be able to get up without an alarm clock, to your point about having that why that helps you. And when you don't have it, you do lose your way. I think that's why we stay under the covers. That's why we want to find more pleasure in sleep than getting up and acting on things. And I got to admit, Erin, when I, this morning, myself getting up, I was like, okay, Erin and I have something going on. I got to get on that. And there was this instant fire. I mean, serious. I'm not being patronized, but it was like there was a sense of purpose.
Yeah.
And I really think that in this communication that we're having, as low key as it may be, someone who tunes in, they're going to get something. I want to go back to Erin. So I think if we reach one person, we reach one with Erin. Let me show you what Erin responded and said. He says, so basically, Erin to Erin, he says, we have to be willing to sacrifice in order to see the finish line. Great message. I often lose sight of that. So you definitely are reaching out and touching people. And I think it's very important that we see that, we want to get to that place. We want to finish. We want to be on top of the box, if you will. Well, how do I do it? Well, what sacrifice are you making? 4 a.m., investing in yourself and all these type of things. Another comment I want to give that's really appreciated. One of our producers of the SPS Ed show, and a great guy, great friend of mine, Coach Orlando Watkins. He says, and this is a quote from famed soccer player Pele. He says, success is no accident. It is hard work, perseverance, learning, studying, sacrifice, and most of all, love. All right, I like that. And what you are doing or learning to do. Erin, why is it that people don't want to give it up to get something? Why is it that you have so many people that want to get a cheat code or want to be able to get the hookup or get around it and still get that feeling at the end? Why do you think that is?
I'm going to actually quote something else that Melody said, and she said, winning isn't for everybody. And,
Come on. Winning isn't for simple but powerful.
Yeah.
Winning isn't for everybody. Talk about that.
Yeah. So I think, whatever your life journey is, that's your life journey. And that's, you got to figure out what makes you tick. And, for some people, it may not be sports, it could be something else. But I think as long as you're passionate about whatever you do and, it's something that makes your soul feel good, then you should go for it. And I also just want to say that sometimes you don't know what that is. Like, I was thinking about that finish line quote that you just had up there. And I didn't cross any kind of a finish line until I was an adult. I had no idea what that experience was. So that first sprint triathlon that I did was the first time I'd ever crossed a finish line. And it was amazing. Like, people are there, they're cheering you on. You feel like a rock star.
What a rush, I can imagine.
Yeah, it was just so great. And I never experienced it, like not, being an athlete growing up.
Let me ask you this. Was there an addiction that was created right there?
It wasn't initially, because I think it was still a little bit too foreign for me. I can tell you when the addiction really started, and that was after my first Ironman. So I did my first one in 2016. I didn't have a coach at the time. I was basically putting together my own training plan that I found in a book. I think it was called something like Women for Triathlon. And so I self-trained myself and got myself ready to do my first Ironman. And my whole plan is I'm going to be one and done. I just want to do one Ironman. I want to know what it's like. And so my first one was in Arizona, and I went out and did it. And I was so nervous going into it because I'd never done those kind of distances before. And the way I broke it up was, I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to do this swim. And if that's as far as I want to go, then that's fine. I can say I've done an Ironman swim. And so I finished the 2.4-mile swim, and I got out of the water and I felt pretty good. I'm like, okay, I can do the bike. So then I got on the bike, and same thing. I was just like, okay, you know what? I am going to just do this Ironman bike. And then again, if I'm not feeling up to it, I'm not going to worry about, the run. I'm just going to, focus on this bike. So, I did the bike. I got off the bike, and my left foot almost collapsed because I think I'd been in one position for too long. And I had this sharp shooting pain going up my leg. So, I didn't, I never felt that before. I didn't know really what to do. And I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to shake it off. I'm going to try to walk, and then hopefully this pain was going to go away. And I remember leaving transition 2, and, people were cheering me on, and they're like, you can do it. But I would look in their eyes, and they're looking at me hopping along, and they're like, yeah, she's not going to make it, but I kept going, and I wasn't, I was mostly walking it. But I remember there was one woman who was on the sideline with her daughter, and she said, show these girls what women can do. And those kind of things were just so amazing. And the other thing we talked, I know a lot about the social aspect of triathlon. So the girls that I first did my sprint triathlon with ended up coming down to Arizona to cheer me on for my first Ironman. And at this point they had, they weren't doing triathlon anymore, but they wanted to support me, and having them there was so amazing because every time I turned around, they were there, cheering me on, and, kind of just being a part of the experience with me. And it just meant so much to me. And when I qualified for Kona, they came out for that too. So I am just so incredibly grateful to have those kinds of friendships that, just it makes such a huge difference when, you're doing the sport, to have, people that are surrounding you with that positivity and, are cheering for you as hard as you're cheering for them.
Now, I'm going to try to keep my composure because as a father of a daughter,
Mm-hmm.
when you reference the mom with her daughter saying, show these girls what women can do,
Yeah.
that touches my heart.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've ever been in a position to be able to see it through someone else's lenses.
Mm-hmm.
How important it was for her to be able to say, look, you're struggling, but let these girls see that. And as a father, I think of my daughter, and I don't think I could have got that message any other way but hearing it in this format. So I can see how that can motivate you and how important that can be. So that's going to bring our interview to a close because I am getting emotional right here. And I don't mind that, Erin, but I also like to make a point that when we have great content, I just want to cap it at that. Because what I feel that people are going to be able to do is they're going to go back and be able to listen to this. And from start to finish, they'll be able to get jewels and nuggets. And I just probably don't think I can go on anymore without looking back and regret. And I blame you for that, Erin. This hasn't happened in all my interviews. You have me thinking about my daughter and being motivated. But no, I say that with nothing but a compliment. Wow. I appreciate you sharing. And just to think that you once said, hey, I'm not like those other athletes you interviewed. No, you're right. You are not like the other athletes I interviewed. So can I just say this in closing? Is there anything you want to share? We do know that you work with BTN, the Big Ten Network, and that's great to be able to have your work life and your personal life be similar in the work that you do. But, for any closing remarks, is there anything else you want to share with our listeners before we wrap up?
Yeah, well, first, thank you so much for having me on. I've really enjoyed, talking to you about this. This is obviously something that I love, and I'd love to share that. I think the thing I would say is that going back again to the fact that I never played sports or did anything athletic growing up, I never saw myself as an athlete. And so discovering this as an adult, it was like discovering this new ability that I never even knew I had. And, I think a lot of times in our lives, who we think we are really defined in childhood. You kind of think, okay, I can do this, I can't do that. And you never challenge that assumption. And so I was really fortunate that my friend decided to sign up for the sprint try, and I kind of tagged along because I could have gone through my whole life without having any of these experiences. And so I feel really lucky that I stumbled upon it. And so I would say to anyone, like, don't always challenge your assumptions of what you can do, because you never know. I always, I was never, I never liked running in PE or anything like that. I try always to get out of it. And so sometimes I think what I do now is my karmic payback for that. But there was nothing better for me than getting a PR and running, because it's something that I never saw myself as doing. And so so that's the one thing that I think that endurance sports and triathlon has taught me, is to be open to the possibilities that who you think you are is not necessarily true. You can be a lot of different things, and you won't know until you try.
Wow. I think there's something to be said about this. This will be on my daughter's podcast list of things she needs to listen to. Daddy, why do I need to listen? She's going to be 9 on the 21st, by the way. But, my mom shared the story with me about the statistics that talk about the importance of women at a very young age needing support for self-confidence and self-esteem. And in
Yeah.
many cases, it's the dad that has to help, because,
Mm-hmm.
believe it or not, other women and moms have a challenge with that, because they were once girls too. So,
Yep.
I really take that to heart. So I just want to thank you for being available. I want to thank you for all the sacrifices you have made to be able to make this discussion so valuable, not only to young women but to young men. I mean, my guys were chiming in, like, hey, what's going
Yeah.
on, and having questions and whatnot. And I think a lot can be learned. So I just want to thank you. Appreciate what you're doing. I want to keep encouraging you, and what we can do as time goes on, we can keep tabs on you and check in with you, so you can continue to motivate us going forward. So with that,
I would love it. Again, I'm so appreciative of the opportunity to be here today and to talk about something I love to do.
that's awesome. We have Erin Harvego. It won't be the last time you hear from her. I hope you can get some good things from the words she shares, and I appreciate you taking your time being with us in SPS. So with that, we'll talk to you guys next time. See you soon. Thanks for checking in.